In this video, you will learn 25 things to do after installing Linux Mint 20 Ulyana. I believe these 25 things are useful for the most of the users, but if you want to do something more, for example if you need to configure VPN or connect your Android phone with your Linux computer, you can learn that in my previous video on 50 things to do after installing Ubuntu. Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu, so many things I showed in that video will also work for Linux Mint. I'll leave the link in the description. Let's start with things to do after installing Linux Mint. And before we start doing any changes to our system, I highly recommend you to create a system snapshot. In case something goes wrong, you will be able to revert the changes. For that, you need to open Timeshift, enter your password, and click here on the wizard. Here you can select either rsync or btrfs, but I think for most of the users rsync will work fine. Next. Then you need to select where you would like to backup your system. It's better to backup your system to another hard drive, for example if you have 2 hard drives or if you have 2 partitions. So I would recommend you to backup your system to another partition. This way your files will be safer. But if you don't have that option, you can of course backup everything to the same hard drive. But I will select another hard drive here. Next. Then you can define how often do you want to make backups and how many copies you would like to keep. I usually do weekly backups and I keep 2 copies, that's enough for me. Then you can click next. Here you select what you want to backup, and I recommend you to go here to the right and include all files for your root and your home. Click next. So now basically the setup for system snapshot is complete. You can click finish here. And also before you start doing things to do after installing Linux Mint, it's also good to click here create and actually make a snapshot of your system. While the system is creating a system snapshot, I would like to introduce you the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Skillshare offers thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people just like you. It is a great place to explore creative classes including writing, video making, music, design, web development, different business topics, lifestyle and productivity. I believe you may like this tutorial on how to hand code your first website by Richard Armstrong, where you will learn basics of HTML and CSS. Everything is presented in a simple way and visually narrated. So in about an hour you will get your first hand-coded website, as I did. The first 1000 subscribers to click on the link in the description would be able to discover thousands of inspiring Skillshare classes with 2 months free premium membership. Then it will be less than $10 a month. Now, when the system snapshot is created, let's continue to the next step of things to do after installing Linux Mint. And we will start with configuring the Update Manager. Open Update Manager from the menu. Then go to Edit, Software Sources, enter your password. And here I recommend to change to the closest server to your location. This way the updates will be downloaded much faster. You need to click here on the main, wait a bit until the system will run different servers which are close to your location, and select the one which is the fastest. Apply, and do the same for the base mirror. Apply. So now the updates will be downloaded much faster. In case you experience any problem, you can always click here, restore the default settings. We will click OK here, update the cache. Then I recommend you go to the Preferences and here change the frequency of the updates. By default it is every 2 hours, but I prefer to have it once a day. Close, refresh, and update your system. The third thing I do after installing Linux Mint is to check if there are any proprietary drivers available for my system. That you go to the menu and search for driver and open this driver manager application. You will need to enter your password. Then you need to wait for a bit until the system checks your hardware, and then you will see if there are any proprietary drivers available for your system. On my system I have hardware which does not require proprietary drivers, but in your case, this window may look like this. Of course, free drivers are better, but sometimes proprietary drivers give little better performance, so give it a try and see if your system works better. Nowadays, more and more computers have Hi-DPI screens, and more Linux distros introduce fractional scaling for such screens. Linux Mint 20 has also that feature. If you go to the menu, Preferences, Display, here by default you will have automatic settings, and usually Linux Mint will recognize your screen and configure it correctly, but if it is not the case, you can switch here to normal, then you can enable fractional scaling and change the scaling to what fits the best your Hi-DPI screen. In my case, I don't have Hi-DPI screen, so I will not enable it and I will keep it as it was before. To be able to play all media file formats, I recommend you to install multimedia codecs. Usually you install them during the installation by selecting this option in the installation wizard, but if you have not done so, you can go to the menu, Sound and Video, and here you will see Install Multimedia Codec. Click on it and click Install. This will install all the necessary multimedia codecs to be able to play MP3 and video formats. Install Microsoft Fonts. If you need to open files which was created with Microsoft Office, most likely those files will use Microsoft Fonts, and to be able to see them correctly, you will need Microsoft Fonts installed on your Linux Mint. Luckily, you can easily do that. You go to the menu, open Synaptic Package Manager, enter your password, and here you go to the search and search for MS Core Fonts and install this file. Mark it for installation, mark, and apply. You will need to accept the license. This will install Microsoft Fonts on your system, and you will be able to use them in your LibreOffice or any other application. And these fonts include probably familiar names such as Arial, Times New Roman, Comic Sans, and others. Decrease swap use. This way we will reduce the number of writes to our disk and use our RAM memory as much as possible. Usually this gives very significant performance boost. I have a dedicated video on swap and swappiness, which you can see here on the card. So to decrease the swap use, you need to open the terminal and check your current swappiness value. For that you type cat procs sys vm swappiness, and the default value is 60, which is kind of good all-around value, but for most desktop users it's better to decrease this value to increase the use of our RAM memory. And to do that you need to type sudo xedit and the path to the file etc sysctl.conf. Enter your password. This will open this file in text editor. You need to scroll down to the very end, and here you type vm.swappiness equal 10. Then save this file and reboot your system. After the reboot, check the swappiness value again, and now it is 10. So this way your Linux Mint use as much RAM as possible and will reduce the number of writes to your hard drive. So usually hard drive is slower than RAM, so it's better to use more RAM if you can. Enabling drive cache is another way to boost the performance of your system, but you will see the noticeable performance improvement only if you use an HDD drive. But if you use an SSD drive, I recommend you to proceed to the next step where I will optimize SSD drives. But if you have an HDD, I recommend you to go to the menu, open the application which is called Disks, select the hard drive where you have your system installed, usually it's the top hard drive, and then go here to the menu and open Drive Settings. Switch to the Write Cache tab and enable it. So this way you will use as much cache as possible on your hard drive and delay the write to the hard drive. So usually it gives quite significant performance boost for HDD drives. But as you can see here, there is an increased risk of losing your data if your computer shuts down unexpectedly, for example because of electricity cut. But this happens rarely, and I have never lost any data on my system, and I have been using this feature for many years. So I believe the performance boost worth the risk. So if you're using an HDD drive, I highly recommend you to enable this feature. You will need to enter the password to enable these settings, and then your hard drive performance will be improved. If you use a SSD drive, you can also do a few steps to extend its lifespan and improve its performance. First, you can reduce the number of writes to this SSD drive. We have done that already with configuring our swappiness value, so we will use more RAM and less disk space, but you can also reduce the number of writes by disabling writing the timestamp to file. Usually it is not very essential information, so we can disable it. For that you need to open terminal and type sudo xeditor and path to the file atc fstab. Type the password to open it, and here you need to find your root partition, which is here. Then you find the word errors equal remount ro, you type comma and add the settings NOAA time. You need to add these settings to other partitions if you have, for example, home partition, but don't add it to the EFI partition, only to your root and your home partition. Save this file and close it. After you reboot the system, these settings will come to play. There is a third feature which is essential for best performance of SSD drive. This is stream feature. Luckily in Linux Mint it is enabled by default, so you don't need to enable it. But if you are curious, you can still check if it is enabled. You type sudo systemctl status fsstream timer. And as you can see, it is activated by default, so there is no need to do anything. So this way, your SSD drive in your Linux Mint will be optimized to maximum. Enable Redshift. Redshift is a program that reduces the amount of blue light on your screen at night. This is better for your eyes, and it also helps you to fall asleep easily. From Linux Mint 20, this program is pre-installed. You just need to enable it. Go to the menu, type Redshift and start it. You will see it appears here in the tray. You just need to click on it and enable auto start here. From now on, your screen will have reduced amount of blue light at night, which is much better for your health. I also changed some Firefox settings after installing Linux Mint. Let's open Firefox. Then I go to the preferences, and here I select restore previous session. This way Firefox will open all the tabs which I had open when I close it. This is very useful. You scroll a little bit down, and here I recommend you to enable play DRM controlled content. So this way you will be able to play Netflix video, for example. Next I recommend you to go to the search tab here, and here I usually switch to this address bar and URL bar separated panel, but it's up to you. You can use the default one as well, but I prefer to use this one because the search bar usually behaves better than URL bar. For example, if you try to search for an email address in the URL, it will open your email client instead of searching for that address on the internet. Next, I'll also right click on the panel and go to customize and remove this empty space. After that, I also change the search engine, because in Linux Mint you have Yahoo as a search engine by default, and you can also switch to DuckDuckGo, which is much better in my view than Yahoo, but in some cases I would still need to use Google search engine, because whether we like Google or not, it is the best search engine. So, and to enable Google search engine, you need to scroll down here and click Find More Search Engines. And here you can choose whatever you like. There are many different options, but I will just click here on Google. So now I have Add Google option here. I click on it and I have Google enabled in my search bar. And if I go to the preferences, I can also move it to the top as my favorite search engine. Firefox is my favorite web browser, but I also sometimes use Chrome browser, and I know that many of you prefer Chrome over Firefox. So you can install Google Chrome in Linux Mint as well. You just need to go to the Google Chrome website, download it, select Debian package here, save the file, Then open your file manager, go to Downloads, right-click on it and open it with GDB package installer. And install the package. Continue, enter the password. So after the installation, Google Chrome will be available in the Internet tab on your menu. You can click on it, and here it is. Previously, I recommended to install Chromium, which is an open source version of Google Chrome, but it is removed from Linux Mint 20 and it is a little more complicated to install than Google Chrome, so I believe for most new users it's much easier to install Google Chrome. Install Audacious. Audacious is an alternative audio player. Linux Mint has Rhythmbox installed by default, and this is a good player and many people like it. It has many different features, for example it has online radio feature, but I prefer a very simplified player which also gives me access to play local files without categorizing them by albums, so I just can play specific folder. Give a try to Rhythmbox. If you don't like, I also recommend you to try Audacious, maybe you will like it more. And to install it you need to open Software Center and search for Audacious. Here it is, and install it. This is very minimal player, and if you remember such program as Winamp, in many ways it is similar to Winamp and you can actually even install Winamp skins on this player. This is just my personal preferences and I wanted to share it with you. Install popular apps. Linux Mint has most of the essential apps pre-installed by default, but you may still need to use some application which is not installed in Linux Mint, and especially if you're a new user, you may not know that many of the popular Linux apps are available in the Software Center. For example, if you need to install Skype, it is available in the Linux Mint Software Center. If you use Dropbox, it is also available in Linux Mint. You just need to search for it in the Software Center. Here it is. If you use Zoom, which is also a very popular application nowadays, it is also available in Linux Mint. So you just need to click here on this install button and it will be available in your system. Similarly, if you use Spotify, it is also available in Linux Mint. I also would like to mention that here you will see these two options. One is a Flatpak package and another one is a regular package. So if you are not sure what is Flatpak, I recommend you to install regular package. In this case, it's the upper option here. Again, you just click install and you will get Spotify on your Linux Mint system. Finally, if you are a gamer, you can also play many games on your Linux system through the application Steam, which is also available in the Linux Mint Software Center. Just install it and you will have access to thousands of different games on your Linux computer. There are many more applications which you may need, just search for them in the Software Center, and this is what I recommend you to do first. Try to always install programs through the Software Center. This is the securest way to get the program. And only after that you may need to download them from the third-party websites. Install Clipboard application. I have made it as a separate thing to do after installing Linux Mint 20 because I believe this application deserves special attention. You can install it through the software manager, just search for Clipit and install it. When you launch it, you will see it appears here in your system tray. When you click on it, you will see the history of your clipboard. As you can see, I have many items here. This is very useful because, for example, if you copied something several steps ago, you can go back and copy that command again or that text. If you go to the Preferences, in the History tab, you can also adjust how many copies do you want to keep in this clipboard buffer. This is very useful application. It comes pre-installed in some desktop environments such as KDE, and I really like it, because you often want to go back and retrieve that text which you copied before. Configure LibreOffice. LibreOffice is well configured by default. I recommend you still to check few settings, maybe you will like it a little more. For example, if you go to View, here you have User Interface, and you can change the view between different toolbars. This is the standard view with two toolbars, but for example, I prefer to use single toolbar. This way I have more vertical space here. Moreover, if you go to View, you can also switch to the tabbed interface, which will be similar to Microsoft Office interface. If you want to revert these changes, you need to click here on the menu bar, go to View, and switch to the standard view. Another feature which I recommend you also to have a look is to go to the Tools, Options, View, and here you can change the icon theme. For example, Tango is the default theme, but you may like this Colibre theme. If you apply it, you see the icons have changed. I personally like these icons a little more. If you want to see more icon themes, I recommend you to go to Synaptic, Package Manager, and search for LibreOffice style. And you will see many different icon themes available here. So right now we have Tango and Colibre pre-installed, but you may try these other icon themes. For example, let's install this Cipher icon theme, apply. We will need to restart LibreOffice. Go to Tools, Options, View, and here we have many more icon themes now. This is how Cipher icon theme looks. This is also quite a nice theme, but I like Colibre the most. Please check these settings, maybe this will considerably improve your LibreOffice experience. Add keyboard layouts. If you're bilingual or if you use several different languages, you may also want to add additional keyboard layouts to Linux Mint. You can do that by opening Settings, go into the Keyboard, Layouts, and here you can add different layout. For example, I will add Swedish keyboard layout here. Then you can also set what shortcut you would like to use to change between these keyboard layouts. You click on these options, go to switching to another layout, and select your favorite shortcut here. So I usually use Alt-Shift. Close, and you will see the keyboard layout icon in your tray. You can switch between different keyboard layouts from here, or you can use the shortcut. After the installation of Linux Mint, you may also want to customize its themes and icons. I have a separate video where I throw all possible options you can customize your Linux Mint, but in this video I will show you just a few quick tips. So of course you probably know that if you go to the Settings, Themes, here you can change between different icon themes, different desktop themes, and control themes. If you go to Add Remove, you can also install additional themes right from here. This is a very simple way to do that. You just click on this icon and install it. For example, I have installed this Adapter Noco theme. If I go to Themes, click here, I will find it right here. So this is how it looks. Let's say if these themes are not enough for you and you want to install more themes, you need to do it the other way. If you go to the website gnomelook.org, here are plenty of different themes for your desktop, for your icon, for your cursor. You can search for them here, download and install it to your Linux Mint. As an example, let me install these Mac Mojave Circle icons. So this is how they look. You go to Files. Here you can click this install button and install it. But before you do that, you would need to install this OCR URL program. You click on it, and you are given the instructions how to install it from here. This is Linux Mint, so we need to use Debian package. Let's download it, save, open it in our downloads folder, double click to install it. Continue, password. So after you have installed that program, you should be able to install any theme icon right from here by clicking on the install button. Let's try it. Install, open it with this application, and click OK. So now the installation is complete and it is successful. You can also click on this open button, and you will see that these icon folders are placed in your home folder .local shares icons. So now if you go to the settings and you go to themes, in icons you will find this newly installed icons theme. Let's select it, So this is how these icons look. Let's open File Manager, Home. Yeah, here they are. So this way, if you go to website gnomelook.org, you can find combinations of different icon and desktop themes and find your favorite theme. Again, I'm not going to do all possible combinations here because this video would be very long. I have a dedicated video where I have also shown some of the themes which I liked on Linux Mint Cinnamon. I'll leave the link in the description and you can also click on it here in the card. So you will learn more in that video. Xkill shortcut. This is very useful shortcut and I believe it should exist in every Linux distribution. And actually some Linux distros have it, but in Linux Mint you need to add it manually. Let me show you how to add it and then I will demonstrate you how it works. You go to the Preferences, Keyboard, Shortcuts, and here you click Add Custom Shortcut. And you name it Xkill. The command will be also Xkill, Add, and then you click here and select the shortcut. In my case I use Ctrl Escape. So now the shortcut is assigned and sometimes to make it work you need to log out and log in. Let's do it. And to show you how it works, I will open this terminal window and press Ctrl Escape. So my mouse pointer has turned into this cross. And what it does, it will kill any application on which I will click with this cross. So this is very useful if some of your application freezes, for example, and you don't know how to close it. You press Ctrl Escape and then you just kill that application. This is very useful and very fast. So it happens rarely that some application freeze, but it is useful to have that shortcut in such a situation. Configure sound. In Linux Mint you can find the settings of your sound if you go to the Preferences, Sound. There are quite a number of options, but not all options are available here. This is a bit simplified version of sound configuration. In some cases you may need more options, and you can get that if you install Power Control application. Go to the Software Center and search for Power Control and install it. It will be available here under the Sound menu and it is called Pulse Audio Volume Control. This is rather standard audio control for Linux. It has little more features. For example, you can amplify your sound. So in Linux Mint by default you have 100% volume, but if you use a laptop with very big speakers, for example, you may want to make them louder. For that you can amplify that sound with this menu. Your quiet speakers will sound little louder. This is very useful. I personally used this feature many years ago when I had laptops with very big speakers. You can also see some other settings here. In some ways they are similar to the settings which you have here, but in some cases they are a little more advanced, so I highly recommend you to install this application as an additional sound settings app. Enable Firewall. If you are a new Linux user, I can assure you that Linux is very secure by default, and it's not even necessary to install an antivirus or enable Firewall. But Firewall is already installed in Linux Mint 20, so why not to have this additional layer of security by enabling it? If you go to the menu, search for Firewall, you will open this Firewall configuration program, and then you just need to enable it. The default settings, allow outgoing and deny incoming, is usually fine for most of the users. And if you want to learn more about how to use Firewall on Linux, I have a separate video where I have explained all the features here, including how you can add and remove different rules, and what kind of settings you can use in your firewall. Please click on that card or go to the description, the link is also available there. Add and remove startup applications. If you open startup applications, you will see that there is quite a big list of applications which are enabled by default in your system, but you may not need all of them. For example, if you are not going to use Flatpak, or if you're a new user and you don't know what it really means, you can disable it. For example, I usually don't use Flatpak. You can also disable Mint welcome screen because you have seen it already, you don't need it anymore. I don't use printer on my system, so I will usually disable printer queue as well. I don't have NVIDIA card, so I can disable the NVIDIA option here. I also don't use any local network, so I can disable this application as well. So this way you can reduce number of startup applications, which will also improve the performance of your system. And let's say there are some applications which you want to start. For example, it can be your email client like Thunderbird. You can click here on this plus icon and choose that application from this menu. As I said, I usually start up my Thunderbird as a startup application because it's my email client. So I add it here and enable it. This way you can improve your system performance by reducing the number of startup applications, but you can also get some productivity improvement if some of the applications start automatically. Remove some apps. Linux Mint comes with many applications pre-installed because it is targeted to new users, and they want to install the most essential applications. But some users may not need all of them, so if you're like me, you want to keep your system clean, you can remove some of these apps. For example, I don't use Xkill, so I right click here on it and uninstall it. Enter your password, so that application is uninstalled. This way you can remove many other programs. For example, if you don't use torrents, you can remove transmission program. If, as I mentioned before, you don't like Rhythmbox, you can remove it as well and keep only Audacious player. So just go through all the possible options here and remove the programs which you're not going to use. If you keep your system clean, it will work little better. Extend battery time. If you run Linux Mint on a laptop, you can install TLP package, which will improve the energy efficiency of your Linux system, and it will give you that extra battery time. To install it, open Synaptic and search for TLP package. Here it is, and you can read here that it is Advanced Power Management Tool for Linux. It is pre-configured package, so you just need to install it, and it will improve the battery time of your system. Mark it for installation and apply. So you don't need to do anything extra, just install this package and your system will be optimized for best battery performance. To keep your system clean, I recommend you to install Ubuntu Cleaner. In my previous videos on things to do after installing Linux Mint, I recommended BleachBit, which is also a good application, but Ubuntu Cleaner is a new application and it also is good. So to install it, you need to go to its official GitHub page, and here you will find the instructions. So we need to run these commands. Another one. So now we need to update our system with this command and install Ubuntu Cleaner. After the installation, you will find it in your menu. Here it is, and here you can select what you want to clean. For example, you can clean cache from your Chrome and your Firefox. You can also clean some personal data if it's necessary. You can also clean apt cache. You can also remove old kernels and many more. So just select what you want to do. So we have some Chrome cache here, which I'm going to clean here. Now my system is clean. Just be careful when you remove old kernels. I recommend you, instead of removing old kernels through this Ubuntu Cleaner, go to the Update Manager, View, Linux Kernels, and here you will see a little more information about different kernels, what you have installed and what you can remove. I recommend you to keep at least 2 kernels always installed on your system. So I have one old kernel here and one new kernel here. This is how I recommend you to handle your kernels. For the rest, it is fine to clean it through this Ubuntu Cleaner application. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you need to do more, for example, if you need to configure VPN, if you want to connect your Android phone to your Linux Mint, if you want to test your web camera and many other things, please watch my previous video on things to do after installing Ubuntu. As I said, Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu, so many things which I showed for Ubuntu will also work for Linux Mint. Thank you for watching.